here. Johnson here.
Iverson here.
Commissioner here. Thank you. If we could have a certified posting of the meeting, please.
I certify that on Tuesday, November 3rd, 2020, the agenda for the Town of Rome Board meeting for Thursday, November 5th, 2020, was emailed to the Wisconsin Rapids Tribune at 1:11 p.m., posted at Rome Town Hall at 12:42 p.m., at Kritzel's Trading Post at 12:57 p.m., and at Nakusa Port Edward State Bank at 12:51 p.m.
Thank you. Next item is approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second. Motion second. Any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Please stand for the pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 6, the citizen comments. Amy, did you receive any requests?
No, I did not.
Not having any requests to address the board, I will dispense with reading the requirements under item 6, 6A on the agenda. Moving on, no action commentary, except possible referral to future agenda. Excuse me. Item 7, information updates, meeting recaps, recent correspondence, current events, and announcements.
Yes, I have one. The Rome Acres, along with Rome Snowbands, will be presenting a Christmas in Rome, on-site Christmas in Rome, on Saturday, December 5th. The panel will arrive at 5 o'clock, and he will flip the switch, turn on all the decorations and trees, and he can retire to a little Santa house on his driveway, so he can greet children, families, and have a
Two things, Mr. Chairman. First, in the City Times this week out of Wisconsin Rapids, a wonderful article recognizing Karen Katursky, who is our Executive Director for Visit Rome. She was selected as the 2019 Department of Tourism Rising Star. And I mentioned this in March that she had been nominated. The awards banquet was supposed to be at the end of March. Unfortunately, because of the pandemic, it was not held, and the awards were given out and announced here in the short past. But Cameron has done an outstanding job for Visit Rome, Wisconsin. She's the first executive director that the organization has had, and she has implemented a tremendous amount of organizational items to help that organization continue on well into the future. So congratulations to Cameron on that award, and we'll see her next month when they come to do the annual Visit Rome update for the board. And then on a personal note, between Shirley and I, we talked about this over the last couple of weeks, and I decided that I will not run for re-election in the spring. So I have submitted my non-candidacy paperwork to our wonderful clerk treasurer, and so I will be vacating my seat after the spring election.
Thank you. I want to know our clerk treasurer. I think we should all be extremely grateful for the work and what folks did with the
you as well, especially taking in Jamie and all the poll workers and all the people who were involved with the election. Great job. Today, the CEA made a visit down to Create, which is down in Adams, and it's a facility that can be used to inspire new business or used for meetings or other types of things. And I wanted to maybe turn this over to Jamie if you wanted to talk about that. Well, it's a beautiful facility, and it's not really open yet, but it soon will be, and there are a lot of different possibilities for use for that building. And then I'll save, I also want to talk about Veterans Day, but I'll save that because that's an agenda item.
So today when the CDA went down to Create, that is a partnership with Adams County Economic Development Corporation. We have reached out to Portage County, who has the first Create. It's an entrepreneur center that sort of develops itself based on the people that use the center. They replicated the model for us here in Adams County, so we're their first off-sprout of the center. And it's on the south end of the city, and we're leasing space right now. Very shortly, there will be available memberships where you can just key card into the building and you can utilize it for collaborative space, you can utilize it for meeting space, you can utilize it if you were meeting clients. School children could utilize it because it would have available Wi-Fi and technology. But the center in Portage County has, as people utilized it, they had skills and abilities, and then they would obtain equipment to match that. So they have one of the largest 3D printers, they have robotics, they have a podcast studio, they have a photography studio, and so we're hoping the same thing will happen here. People will have that entrepreneurial spirit, they'll come in, they'll utilize the space, they'll collaborate with others, and then Adams County Economic Development will help them purchase the things that could get them to the next phase of them establishing their business.
And thank you, Jerry, for your service to the board and to the community. I know you've done a great job. You'll be missed on this board.
Yeah, I'd like to reiterate, Jerry, good luck, and thanks for your service. In other news, the Parks and Rec Committee met and decided to omit the restrooms that we were planning by the Dan Shell. We decided they're too close to the other set of restrooms across the street from the splash pad. We will be building restrooms further south along that park property here. So we may revisit that decision, but right now that's kind of the direction we're headed. We're also looking for an architect. We have be out there for bid proposals, and it'll be due tomorrow. So we'll be looking for an architect. We have a pretty good idea of what we want to have drawn up for ourselves, so we're going to give some ideas on this document. So that's pretty much it.
Okay, moving right along. Discuss and possible action on the following items. Item 8 is discussion and action and approval of the October 15th, 2020 budget meeting. Number 3, the town board meeting minutes. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve as presented.
Second.
Motion second, any discussion, additions, corrections? Hearing none, all in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carried. Item 9, discussion and action, checks, vouchers, receipts, and journal entries. Food checks number 42255 through 42340, totaling $325,601.11. State Social Security, Medicare, withholdings totaling $33,863.53. Do we have clarification on that? There's entry 72 there. Is that a thing?
I'm guessing that's I didn't write it up, but I'm guessing it's a typo. I'm sure it's just 53 cents.
53, yeah.
So it is, the 72 is just,
It must have been a typo.
okay, thank you. Payroll vouchers B 16116 through B 16244, totaling $85,574.10. 331 through 21444 for $1,160.19.
I'll move to approve the checks, vouchers, receipts, and journal entries with the correction of the 72.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carried. Item 10, discussion only, update on enforcement of tree houses and potential regulation of tree structures and elevated structures to zoning code. Jamie, I assume you will address that.
So there was a letter in your packet from zoning administrator Brian, just stating that the one structure that we have been talking about did have engineering drawings completed and was brought up to acceptable standards. We also included the email from the zoning administrator, from our contract building inspector that stated that he inspected the property and that it's brought up to standards. So that's like one piece of this. The other piece is the code language, and I'll let Attorney Flanagan speak about that.
Thank you. Just a general comment or update that the three options that you were provided with at your last meeting, those are set for review at the planning commission meeting on November 10th, 2020. And so I will bring after that to your next meeting any recommended changes just to keep you apprised of where the planning commission is in that process. Again, just a reminder that we are also working on chapter 142 as we had discussed before. And those will all be brought really at the same time, just so you can kind of see how it all works together. And so those are, the 142 is being reviewed internally. The chapter 360 zoning ordinance options are being reviewed on November 10th.
Thank you. Any questions? Hearing none, item 11, discussion action, approval of resolution number 20, and observance of celebration of Veterans Day. Do I have a motion?
So move. Second.
Motion in 2 seconds, discussion. Certainly, these are strange times, and this is another sad part of COVID. So look forward to having that luncheon and some entertainment and celebrating all our veterans. And let's hope and pray that a year from now, things are back to more normal and we're able to go back to where we were.
I'd really like to thank Chairman Podurski for her work on informing people about the observance, which is going to be at Spring Branch Cemetery at 11 o'clock on the 11th. The observance, of course, is for the end of World War I, which ended on the 11th day of the 11th hour of the 11th month. And as Wayne said, as the chair said, we're not going to be observing the occasion by having a meal here for the vets this year, but we will be out at the cemetery. I'd like to thank our administrator as well. Jamie did a great job of getting information out on the marquee out here and also letting people know that what's happening on that day. So I'm strongly encouraged by the resolution and also by the observance, which is coming up on November 11th. Thank you.
All in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Absolutely approve that motion. Item 12, discussion and action approval of resolution number 20, amending the investment policy of the town's financial policies and procedures and why don't we get a motion in a second, and then we've asked Jamie to make a few comments before we move forward.
I so move.
Second.
The motion is second. Jamie, you want to vote?
So this is closing that communication loop that we had with Ellers. Last month you saw the actual policy that will go into our internal manual here. And then this is the last piece that we'll present to Ellers, and then we will start, they will be as an extension of staff to help us with our investment purchases. going forward. So we're excited to get started with them.
Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carried. Item 13, and this kind of follows along with the comments of our treasurer earlier, discussion of the action approval of hazard pay for the November general election workers. Do I have a motion?
I so moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Again, I'm extremely grateful for all the folks, again, and also the rest of the country for learning and making of the folks who are going here.
I have received many positive comments about the job you did.
That's good to
Very
hear.
impressive.
All in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carried. Item 14, the request to, use some money on some property, I wish I could order my house, because they have referred, they don't even make so dark. They're actually, they don't feel dark every night. That aside,
Neighbors.
yeah. Yes. I request discharge permit request by Town of Steel for bull hunting on town owned property, personal number 030-06067-0000, approximately 50 acres. Do we have a motion to approve this request?
So move. Good luck.
Is there a second?
Second.
Now we've got 2 seconds. Any discussion?
I think, the police chief is here. I think he just wanted to comment on this also, because we still have to issue the permit. And I think that, the town attorney also wanted to talk about recreational immunity.
Just a brief touch on recreation.
Go ahead, Chief.
So my comments really relate to both numbers 14 and 15. It hasn't been asked of me, but this question comes up time to time when hunting on public property is requested. The answer is we can control hunting on public property immediately by our ordinance. The question that comes up is what liability do we have for allowing somebody to hunt on town property? And that is something that's covered under statute, under recreational immunity. That statute section is 395.52. And generally, because there's always generally in statutes and then there's some exceptions. Generally, recreational immunity does provide a blanket of coverage or immunity from liability for property owners when they allow use of their property for what are called recreational activities. So what does that mean? Well, it means that the owners of the property don't owe certain duties to the people that go on the property to do recreational activities, such as the duty to keep the property safe for recreational activities, inspect the property, or give warning for an unsafe condition. But it also provides some immunity from liability that the owners or officers or agents wouldn't be liable for death of injury to or death or caused by a person that is engaging with that recreational activity. By the statute, hunting is defined as a recreational activity. So under the definition of recreational activity, hunting is there. And so certainly recreational immunity applies here. There is really 2 exceptions, and I'll really touch on the second exception more, because one of those exceptions is if we're charging, okay, for spectators or access, anything more than a minimal amount. And we aren't here, and so that's the exception that would bring some liability or take us outside of recreational immunity if somebody were to be hurt. The second one is if there's a malicious act or failure to warn against an unsafe condition that the owner knew which occurs on the property. And so how that could apply, and I'm not saying it applies to this one, it could apply to number 15, is, for example, if the town owned a property in Sumner and they allowed rifle hunting on that property, you're so close to neighbors, right, that it could be see that there's a safety concern. We have that into our ordinance with the police chief being able to put some limitations, right, on what someone can hunt with, and other things that are issues of public safety. The reason that's in our ordinance is because of that exception to recreational immunity. So, in summary, recreational immunity applies here. It would blanket the town from having liability, unless it would fall within an exception. We're definitely not charging for the use of the property, so we aren't within the first one. Second one, we just want to make sure that any of these kind of requests we confer with the police chief to address any concerns that he would have with public safety, because that's what falls under that second exception. That's my reason to hand over.
Chief, you have the floor.
Just a couple things. I think number one, if it's approved, there is no fee that was set in our fee schedule.
On the clock, when I
Sure.
just.
There was never a fee that was set for this in the schedule. The town board actually says that I can issue these hunting permits, but the board that changed the ordinance said we don't want you issuing any unless we tell you to. And that was before, I think, anyone that was on this board, it was before I was chief. It went back to, I believe, the previous chief when the ordinance was changed. We've had hunting permits issued, then we had the ordinance that said they couldn't be issued, and then they changed it back to being issued with a permit, but they didn't set a fee. We have had some problems, probably not in the situation that this gentleman's proposing, but Derek Hughes Park, people were hunting out there, and there was some arguments over where people were gonna hunt. They issued, basically, permits weren't issued, they just said people can hunt on town property during rifle season. If they just let the town know they were gonna go out there, too many people got on the land. So my only concern would be, if we get an abundance of these requests now that we've granted one, how are we gonna decipher who gets one, who doesn't, and the issues that arise out of that? But once the public hears that, hey, we're opening town land to hunting, you're gonna get a rash of applicants, and we had problems with that in the past. That's my only concern.
So Chief, what you just said, are you indicating you are not for allowing this?
I think we have to have some discussion. If 10 more people come in and say they want to hunt that parcel as well, I'm sure he doesn't want to get out in a stand in the morning when the sun comes up, there's somebody 10 feet away from him. And that's what happened at Derek. He used to be going out there rifle hunting, the sun came up and blazed orange all around. So we need to, before we start issuing these, we need to be real careful. How are you going to decide who's going to get one and who's not going to get one? And my guess is that's why previous boards just left it lay and said we're not going to open it up to hunting. We had a special deer hunt years and years ago that included Sherwood Forest, and that's when they used this permitting to say, hey, there's a special hunt for a limited amount of time in town to reduce the deer herd. And those areas were opened up. I just don't know how we would pick if we had more than one applicant come in, who's going to get to it and who's not going to get to it.
And just for clarification, if we charge for a discharge permit, then,
Minimal, it has to be a minimal charge.
okay.
And I'll also add a few more concerns that, and my concerns with either of these applications, more just general concerns in light of recreational immunity. I have concern with the type of hunting. I think that's always got to be one concern. Is it bow hunting? Is it rifle hunting? The location in proximity to residential properties. That the person holds a valid hunting license. Whether we want to require liability insurance to be on file that holds the town harmless for liability and run that past our insurance. Proximity to adjacent properties, somewhat similar to the neighbor point, but these can be large parcels, neighboring large parcels, but there can be buildings, and we do have some reference to bow hunting on private property with proximity to buildings, but it may be something to consider here. Proximity to the road, and then proximity to buildings. So those would be just some things to at least consider in making your determination. If you do approve this as well, I believe that the request that came in from both of these individuals did not Yeah, by ordinance, it is the police chief that grants and discharge permits. And I think, because and I don't want to speak for him, but if I'm hearing you correctly, he's just looking for some guidance before he issues those kind of permits.
Sir, you asked to address the board, could you identify yourself, and then please use the microphone.
Yeah, I'm Tom Beal. I'm essentially just looking to, right now, for your permission to go hunt on the property. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, but it's 50 acres behind Woodland Church. So there's no roads, boundaries that would come into play there. It's behind the church. I don't know, there probably was at least 300 yards between the church property and the actual property. And then it goes west of there is the actual pipeline land that runs through. And then there are some houses on Rapids Trail, but they're on the far south end. So there's, you know, it's kind of a limited space where there's not a lot of property and people involved in any of the areas that's going to be funded.
Thank you, sir.
There's a map.
Let's open it up for more discussion at this point. Assuming the chief has asked if we approve this, that we give us some guidance and some possible parameters. You also suggested a number, so let me open this up for discussion. John?
I have a question for the chief. Is any of our land posted in any way?
Yeah, I don't, other than their use, I don't believe so.
Okay. Could it be posted with instructions of who to contact, you know, for whatever use we wanted to designate?
It certainly could be. The requirement to post, they have to get permission to hunt. That's how it works. The landowner isn't required, including the town, to post no trespassing or whatever. It's assumed it's no trespassing unless you look at a plat book, which I'm sure this gentleman did, and then came here to ask for permission from the law enforcement standpoint. They could put signs up. My biggest concern is the last time they opened town property for hunting out by the transfer site, they opened, they accused this parcel, I believe, was open. Word of mouth quickly spread and more people off the public land came in, and then we started having, like I said, hunting disputes that the PD was dispatched to, who should be there, who shouldn't. And I'm very concerned with what are going to be the criteria. So we give him a permit tonight, and tomorrow 20 more people, not necessarily tomorrow, but before rifle season, I could easily see getting 20 calls that, hey, I want to hunt here, I want to hunt over there, and how are we going to maintain that? We bought a piece of software that we don't have yet, it's for 2021 to issue licenses and stuff for other things that we also could utilize for this that would help us track. We could search and say, hey, we have 25 applications out, maybe it's not a good idea, maybe we should close it now until some people lose interest and make them renew their license each year to do that, but we need to have some kind of parameter. How can I say who I should issue one and who I shouldn't? If a gentleman from Wisconsin Rapids comes down here and says, I'd like to hunt that parcel, do I issue him a permit? And then if I do, 3 weeks from now, if a town own resident comes and says, I want to hunt there, and we said we're only going to issue 3 permits, and he has one, and another own resident, a guy from Rapids, and now you got your resident that's furious that I pay taxes out here, and you're letting somebody from Wisconsin Rapids hunt on the land and not me. That's why they stopped doing it before, because it just got into a big mess. When I was hired here in 2000, the chief was issuing those permits. They took it out of the ordinance then due to the arguments and said no hunting. And when they did the revisions due to the special hunt they had, I think they dropped it back in so they could have the special organized deer hunts where it's a group of people and an organized thing. The town got special permission from the DNR, and I believe Arrowhead was involved in that, and had people out in the golf course hunting and these parcels of land that we're speaking about in the deer herd. But I can see problems in starting this again.
Can we put conditions on a permit saying you can hunt, but you can only hunt these days, these these hours, whatever condition we feel would be appropriate.
Absolutely, that is in 281-3 sub D. It says the police chief sets the conditions for public safety.
Can we limit it to bow hunting only?
Yes, that's specifically.
Jerry, you've obviously dealt with this before, you served the longest on the town board. What's your history, what's your feeling on this?
Well, first of all, I think it's any right thing on any land. All of our land is equal, other possibly here. The only thing that should be restricted to goal line. I would suggest, we're going to set some guidelines for it. It should be limited how many people per acre, how many acres per person. Goal line, I would say 15 acres per person, so if you have 40 acres, you have 2 people, that's it. So that you don't have other people going on.
Chief, if you said, home residents only, you limit to 5 feet, 5 permits, and any other reasonable requirements you see, you don't want to be near any houses, or any roads. I don't know, there are times know all this, but not everybody's a good hunter.
Just one comment. So the way that the ordinance is written, a permit can be issued for, it isn't just one person, right? This individual, and I'm not saying he does, but this individual could have a person that he's going with, or a child that he's going with. There's could be multiple people, and so the question is, per party? So 2 parties? So if somebody came with a party of 3 people, so 40 acres?
50 acres.
I'm more concerned with the logistics of managing this. I'm here, business hours and available by phone, but on Saturday morning, the officers get a call, how are we going to track this? I mean, when we did it before, the permit was for the season. If you start taking, well, I'm going to give, you can have the 3rd week of November, I have no way to track that this year until the software comes out. I mean, next year we could issue a permit, and the guys would be able to look right in our records management system and say, hey, your permit isn't valid, and these days it was only for the following days. But right now, I have a Word document that would just create an astronomical amount of work. Should we get a big response to this, I'm fine. He's the only person that asks to do this, but if the floodgates open again, I don't know how I'm gonna manage it. And again, that's why they stopped doing it before.
If I understand, Jerry, what you said, the practice in the past has been no. And your feeling is maybe we should continue that
Well,
practice?
yeah, like Chief said, it opens up whole can of worms. And I guess we just say no, that's what it is. We got citizens here for some areas, but
Bill, you have not commented. Now, that will be,
We have it in our ordinance that we can't approve hunting on town property. They have to issue a permit.
It says that there's no hunting on town-owned property, with the exception, there's actually listed exceptions, but the ability to hunt on town-owned property is within this charter permit.
So, to me, if it's there, and I'm an applicant for a discharge permit because I want to hunt on this property, but then from the town board, you're saying I can't. Then why do we have it written in the ordinance?
The reason it's in the ordinance is what I spoke of earlier. They had a special deer hunt that was organized by the DNR to thin the herd, and without having that in there, they would have to appear before the town board to get permission for this hunt. So they had that in there for these special deer hunts that are organized by the DNR. Landowners complain, the golf course complain, there's too many deer here, they're doing damage to our course. They organized an event, we then issued these permits, and they went out. It was a weekend event or 2 weekend event of deer hunting, and that was that. looking at this again after the first of the year, whenever we can get that software in place, but right now I would have no way to track it if we get more than a couple of people, or the town board could tell this gentleman, you know, you can hunt, and the other one on the agenda, and do it on a case by the town board, and then you'll know how many are there, but doing the shorter terms, I would have no way to manage that right now, or know how to tell people no. I mean, like the chairman said, if we just did Rome residents, we might be all right just for this year. But in the next year, you just keep getting more and more and more. And at some point, you gotta know how to determine who's gonna get to do it.
First and second, who made it?
Oh. It was first by Hagen, second by Iverson.
Okay, thank you. That's clarification. Do we need any more discussion, or do we need to vote?
Question, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I hear what Jerry's saying, since we have it on the books, the gentleman come here and ask, and could we ask our attorney to come back with language that would omit some of that other stuff there, and then just close all of our language in the future?
Well, the language that would remove it would just be to remove the discharge.
Right.
Is that, but if there's an organized event, like the police chief talking about, we need to have that in our ordinance.
Well, unless they come to the board.
I think we probably can straighten this up. I wanted this brought before the board because I don't believe anyone's on the board that was on the last time we had one of the hunts and when we were told not to issue permits. I don't know if Jerry was yet or not when it was discussed. But I didn't know if the views changed, and the town board gave the instructions, this is on the books, and people called last year, they called, and I basically said, I don't have permission to issue the permits. The town board would have to authorize me, which is kind of what we're talking about, so I have no problem with people calling, just saying, no, this gentleman wasn't told that, because we decided to see what Jamie and I, what the board felt on it, if we felt we should revisit it, or if we should just keep telling people no, seeing it's a different board than what was seated when I was originally told not to issue permits.
Okay, thank you. We do have a motion, second, we've heard from Tom. Thomas or Tom?
Either one is fine.
Okay, thank you. We've heard from the chief, we've heard from the council. I would like to call a roll call vote on the motion and second to allow it. I apologize, Mr. over there on my far right, but Mr. Cartwright, what is your vote?
Mr. Hawes?
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
John?
I'd like to offer an amendment to this, that we,
Well, we don't have a second to back up and do that.
but I asked first, maybe you didn't hear me, but.
Oh, I'm sorry, you did. Go ahead.
I'd like to amend my motion to grant this on a one-time basis. Mr. Valzetta, and that we have our attorney check into it to not allow these events in the future. So that takes,
So this is again our responsibility.
and they can come and request it.
Yeah, it's not really something that I need to do, it's just you directing the chief that these don't get issued in the future, except when an event organized with conjunction with DNR is brought before. Really, the way our ordinance is drafted, the police chief can issue these. What he's saying is that in the past, he's received direction from the town board, so he knows kind of the parameters to work with. And so really, it's not me that's telling you that. But if that's what your desire is to direct the chief not to issue these except for organized events that are in conjunction with the DNR, you just let them know.
Okay, so the amendment should be that on a one-time basis that we let chief decide if Mr. Gill is allowed this one-time hunt on it.
And you're not
seconded the original motion. I'll second that one.
So, is the motion then that for approval if the chief issues the discharge permit? I'm sorry.
One, just,
And is that for one person? Is that for
Strictly for him.
for the hunting season? Or is it for a period of certain days?
just for the whole meeting.
Okay, and then I think the last question would be, can we make it conditioned on him having a complete application according to our ordinance? Because there's some statements that are required by ordinance that we don't have.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good one, I guess.
Okay, thank you.
One question I have on your comment. What about the other residents that, like, you said the president do it once, and you're going to turn around and say no more?
Yeah, because when he has come here and asked for this, and we have it, we have it in our power to grant it now, but actually, we're just gonna close the door, and I appreciate that you came in and asked, and, you know, I went through the process. I hear what you're saying, Jerry.
I'm glad you know that, because I'm,
Yeah, and I got problems with that one, that we can, because that's asking for both bow hunting and rifle, and it's a much smaller parcel. And he's not here to talk about it anyway, so it's a whole different situation. To me, it's not the same thing.
Okay, we have a motion, and we have an amended motion, and we have a first and a second. Our first vote is, we vote yes on the amended, you vote yes on the amended amendment.
No, I vote no.
You vote no. John?
Yes.
Gerald?
Yes.
Jerry?
No.
so you say very well.
You know, it's not like we're talking, we're talking, all there was wrong. So we have a lot of acreage here, 40 acres is a lot, not go on with it. And if we can't have the chief, make discretionary calls on it this year, that's fine with me, just bring everyone before the board, and let's go with it.
I do vote yes, pending a further study of this. So one person gets a discharge permit only to 150 acres. I vote yes, so the motion did carry 3-2. Item 15, discussion and action, discharge permit request by Francis S. for bow and rifle hunting on town property, parcel 030-00764-0010 and 030-00764-0020, which is approximately 21 acres. Do I have a motion for this request?
I'll move, the motion, that excluding the rifle, to go on.
Okay, there's a motion for bow only on this 21 acres. Is there a second?
I was like,
Could I just ask, does your motion include the same as the last, that this is a one-time, this one per person, and they still have to complete the application with the chief?
No, you certainly asked to complete the application. I would be in favor of entertaining anyone that comes before the board.
Okay. But the same guidance from the last motion carries on to this one?
I guess I asked her.
Okay, so we have a motion for only for one person. And we have a second. Any other discussion?
I have a concern about the acreage. I wouldn't have as much problem with the bow on 21 acres. The problem is rifle that close.
I think the motion was only.
It is. But it's still very close to population there. I mean, maybe it's nice for people to do this, but, you know, we've got to consider the people that live next to it too. We might have a whole bunch of people in here that are very upset or concerned about that, and I do have a concern about that, so that's.
I did ask Bob to vote first, last
I have a question about the motion. Does the motion say this is a one-time thing?
That's what I have that in the motion.
You have that in the motion?
One time for one person for the season and must complete the application.
For both seasons.
Well,
Yes,
although,
for
yes,
all.
and since Bob has made it just for
Chair votes yes. Gerald?
Yes.
Jerry?
Yes.
Bob? Yes. Okay, motion carried. Item 16, discussion of possible action, approval of side letter agreement between the town of Rome and Law Professional Police Association, WTPA, LER, surgical medical insurance premium payment. We've all seen a copy of the side letter. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the side letter.
Second.
Motion second, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carried. Item 17, the board may go into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statute section 19.85, subsection 1, subsection C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body of jurisdiction exercises responsibility, specifically the town administrator, performance evaluation, and candidate. Let's take a roll call vote. Before I call the roll call vote, we would ask the administrator not join us at the beginning of the session. But we do have full council join us at the beginning of the whole session. It's my turn to start first on the vote. I vote yes. Gerald?
Do we have a motion to go into closed session?
Did we do a motion?
No.
Move to go to close according to state statute.
Okay.
Second.
Motion and second. Chair votes yes. Gerald?
Yes.
Jerry?
Yes.
Bob? Yes. Yes. And I consent. Okay, well, now in closed session, I think we will excuse ourselves to go into the boardroom. There is social distance and face mask. And,
Jamie, I'm not sure what the
leaving the court counsel should be relatively short. We will come back to the closed session after that closed session, and we have to debate related to that closed session.
Oh, my goodness, yes, yeah.
So how did the voting go on Tuesday? Was there lots of people here, or did everybody vote before?
No, we had a line at the beginning of the day that was they were parked out on Alpine, and they were lined up outside past the fire department. We were very surprised.
Really?
But out of 2,400 registered voters, we had like 2,290.
Yeah, that's not that day.
Not that day, no, in total, yeah. Yeah. So we had 90
2,400 registered, 2,290.
voted, yeah. And we had 90 registered on election day. So,
Wait till election. I don't get that.
The ballot numbers were actually included in the family ballot.
yep, the absentees.
So only 110 people were registered.
I would entertain a motion to return to open session as authorized under Wisconsin State Statutes 1928-5 subsection 2 to possibly take action from the closed session and continue with the agenda. Do I have a motion?
Move to come back to open session according to state statute.
I have a motion second. Any discussion? I call for a roll call, starting with Gerald. Yes.
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 Yes, all in favor of returning to open session. While we were in closed session, we did discuss two things. One, we did an annual review of performance of our town administrator, Jamie Gabert. And the second thing we did, we discussed her employment contract. The first thing does not take any action on the part of the board. The second thing does, do we have a motion to approve the new contract for our town administrator?
Second,
A motion second, any discussion?
I'd like to thank our core council and our board chair for their work on this. Thanks, Nick, and thanks.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carried. Next item is dates and items for future agenda meetings. Are there anything that any supervisor would like to see on the next agenda other than normal business?
Would it be appropriate to revisit the discharge permit, just maybe as a discussion?
Certainly.
Like to see that.
I'm just not real comfortable with how this, and I can understand Chief's concerns, because what's gonna happen, the word's gonna get out, and we're gonna get a number of other applicants. So we will be given each individual one-time ability to hunt this fall. And there may be more. It's going to create a little bit of heartburn and discontent. So maybe we need to clean up that. I don't know. It's for discussion purposes.
Or announce our decision at this meeting as a review. That we're going to allow one person in each parcel. Don't only vote on.
Limit versus 1 acre per person. That way, if you have 40 acres and some on,
Yeah, I think we have to have a better definition so that, and Chief's the one that we've given the authority to issue the district permit, but he's not, my impression is he's uncomfortable doing that only because of what's happened in the past.
I think we need to establish some criteria for use.
I owned 80 acres up north that we rented, and then 40 acres that my son owns, and, we would allow people to go on there, but we always moved them, so we could control it. neighbors. If I was a neighbor there, I have no control of what's going in there. I don't know that, and I think what Chief is saying, once he grants to one, for us too, it's hard to say no to the next one.
Yeah, we got criteria.
You gotta have some really strict criteria on how that's gonna be done.
You're supposed to, one person per business unit, it's pretty good.
Yeah, I think we need to have something more stable, more solid than what we currently have. That's me.
We already have, ordinance that says you cannot discharge with a hundred yards of building. Construction, so that keeps them away from the house.
And the center line of the highway and all that, I mean, all that should be part of the thing that they sign off on, I think. There needs to be more done, and I would like to see the land posted if they're gonna be hunting, because there's some lands we maybe don't want to be hunting.
Well, the chief was still controlling.
You could.
You tell them we want to take parcel. You know,
I think it's a good idea to add it to next month's agenda.
Position on my home property over there, so we can kill, point here.
Obviously, we need more discussion at the next meeting. Thank you. Anything else? Hearing none, item 20, next meeting date, I believe, is the 19th.
It's the 19th, just a reminder, that is the annual budget hearing. So the meeting will be at 6 PM. That'll be a special town meeting. And then immediately following will be the regularly scheduled town board meeting.
Thank you. Is there any other business to come before the board? Hearing none, we're adjourned.